Hi, my name is Andrew Reinertz. I'm the Community Development Director with Art South Dakota, and that was Fritz that just ran up the stairs in case he starts barking again. But we're so grateful that you could all be with us today for this great session. We're going to have a really fantastic group of panelists that all three of which I just always enjoy having conversations with each of you individually. So the fact that we get to have all of you on screen at the same time is really fantastic. So to kind of to start, I just need to quick thank some of our partners. We couldn't do this work without the support of the South Dakota Arts Council, the Bush Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, and this series of webinars in particular is also supported through some funding from Arts Midwest and some ongoing programming that Arts Midwest and the South Dakota Arts Council are doing together. Also, before we get started, if you have any questions that come up during the course of the session, we're going to have quite a bit of time for Q&A and conversation with you all. So please use the Q&A button that you'll find in your Zoom program. It just helps us track those questions, and we can definitely ask all of your questions to the panel. But then also feel free to use the chat function. Say hello to your colleagues, say hello to the panelists. I see a lot of names in the attendee list I recognize, and some new names as well. So it's just so great to have you all here. So before I turn it over to our panel, I would just like to kind of set the stage just a little bit for the conversation today. So we've had a number of conversations for a long time about accessibility in the arts, and recently, we collaborated with the South Dakota Arts Council to help them present a 3-series webinar to kind of restart that conversation and really get it moving again. Many of you attended the session 2 weeks ago with the accessibility coordinators from the National Endowment for the Arts. And then we also have a session coming up in 2 weeks after this with Kate and other staff from the South Dakota Arts Council to talk through some more practical things that they're doing, some new checklists, some new guides that they're providing for their grantees and requiring their grantees to complete. But really today I thought would be a unique opportunity to talk to 3 arts leaders around the state. We have with us Dan Cleberg from the Fallout Creative Community in Aberdeen. We have Heather Pickering from Flutter Productions out West River, and Nancy Halverson with Levitt at the Falls from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And all 3 organizations are doing a lot of work for accessibility, whether that be accessible venues, accessible performances, but also in particular accessible and inclusive art making. So not thinking of it as just, do we have a venue that people can get into, but how is everybody involved in the creation process, and how are we more fully representing our communities as arts organizations? With that in mind, I'll just kind of turn it over now to Dan Cleberg to start to say a few words about himself and about the work of the Fallout Creative Community.
Okay, so it's hard for me to put my story into 10 minutes, so cut me off. So the Fallout Creative Community, we're my sister and I started a coffee house 26 years ago now, and out of the coffee house, being an artist and a musician myself, I wanted to have space for artists to hang their art and for musicians to have to perform on stage. So we made sure that was a part of what we were going to do with the coffee house. And as we started letting people play on the stage and letting people hang art, other people thought, I could give that a try. And so other people started identifying as artists and musicians. And then out of that, community started happening with all these people and collaborations and things. So a lot of other initiatives in building community with these people continued. And we actually started some community housing called the Fallout Houses. That's where we got their name, the Fallout. And so there were some people who were living together, planning together to do things that were good for the community and community building. And just the tool that we used was the arts, because that's kind of how we all identified. So there was art parties, there was building weird bikes, two-story high bikes, 3-story high bikes, double wide bikes, stuff like that. Just a lot of weird welding things happening. So a lot of projects going on with that. alongside of that, there was people in the coffee house, particularly one guy named Bruce, who was hanging out in the coffee house, and his job coach, long story short, he wound up telling me his story. He was adopted, so he doesn't know who his parents are. So he made up his backstory, and we wound up making a film out of it. So he really got involved with the community, and all the people in the all the creative people hopped on board and made this film, right? And this film went on to inspire film competitions and ultimately the South Dakota Film Festival here in Aberdeen. But side story. So this guy, we saw his job coach, his counselors, people that work with him were noticing what a positive effect it had in his life. And it turns out you take a person out of isolation, put them in a community and give them the opportunity to express themselves creatively, and it does a holistic good for them. So with this group of people that living in community, we had 2 community houses and all these people with a lot of good energy. I thought we need to have some sort of mission statement, some sort of plan to push us forward. And taking a look at Bruce and other people who have seem to be benefiting greatly from the opportunity to be involved with community in a creative way, we decided that our mission would be to find those people who are on the outskirts, make paths to include them in our creative activities, and so that became our mission. So shortly after that, someone mentioned, there's grants out there for what you're doing. We've just been kind of doing it, just part of just naturally what we were doing. And so someone told me about grants, and I thought, why not? So we look into it. We searched the internet for just how to be a nonprofit. We had no idea what we were doing, but everything fell into place, and pretty soon we were doing projects and programming that involved people with disabilities. And as soon as the first people started to get involved, they started pulling other people with disabilities, and we just included them as natural people who are natural partners in the creative process. And it's been it was super fun. So we just started doing a whole bunch of stuff. And one of the main things that we did was we started a Thursday night meeting where people with disabilities would plan and kind of take charge of events throughout the month that were super inclusive, that included all people of all abilities. And then we started a band called Better Ride, where the majority of the people in the band, people with disabilities who would write, perform, make videos, record music. So now we continue on with, we have these festivals out in the street, where we bring in hundreds of people to come out to a festival where there's art stations, there's music, and we continue with that weekly meeting continues, and we have, and that meeting plans the karaoke night, the art and music party is what we call it. Once a month we have all those art supplies, and everyone come out and make art. And then there's we curate kind of a showcase of local talent, where just one by one about a dozen to 15 people come out on a Friday or Saturday night, and we do that. We have all these other projects like mural projects and film. We do a lot of film that traces all the way back to Bruce's film. A lot of film competitions, or just someone who wants to make a film will get together and make it. We just got a grant where we're going to build a little film studio where people can get together and make a film with their group of friends in an hour. So it's going to be like a what do you call it? An escape room, but instead of escaping, you're making a film with a group of friends, that kind of thing. So this is that's our story in a nutshell. I usually tell the longer version to my employees here at the Red Rooster Coffee House, to tell them the coffee house is the machine to make all this magic happen. So It's very important to be the best barista that you can be. So I guess that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, Dan, not to get too far in advance and ask some of the questions I'm going to ask all three of you later, but just to kind of set the stage for that, another part of what you do is tour with Better Ride quite a bit,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, we're going to be in Sioux Falls next weekend, actually,
Oh,
at the
really?
Downtown
Okay.
Block Party. Dakota Abilities on Thursday and Downtown Block Party on Friday.
Yeah, great. Well, I bring that up because I think part of our conversation after when we're all kind of into the open conversation part will just be some of that experience of having taken a number of folks with differing abilities around the state and what some of the challenges you've encountered with access to stages even and some of that kind of stuff. So I think
Right.
that'll be a really exciting conversation later. But just wanted to kind of mention some of your touring and also that you do that work. And so
Yeah,
if
yeah.
people are interested in getting Better Ride around, to definitely reach out.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
I did forget to mention that we take those big things that we do out in the street, we shrink them down into a trailer and go out to other communities and do a smaller version of our big festivals that we do. Yeah.
yeah, great. Well,
Kind of
thank you.
plant the seed of what we do here, and hopefully these things will pick up in other places.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much, Dan. And we'll come back for the full Q&A, but maybe I'll turn it over now to Nancy with the Levitt and Sioux Falls.
That is a great transition because we got to have Better Ride on our stage last year.
Yeah.
All right, I am trying to, let's see. We'll get this. See, I thought I knew what I was doing. You slide. Is that it? There we go.
Yep, looks perfect.
All right, thank you. Yes, so we got to have Better Ride on our stage last year, and it was just an incredible evening. So Dan, thank you for the work that you do. Yeah, so I'm Nancy Halverson. I'm executive director at Levitt at the Falls. Just to give you a little background on our organization, we are actually part of a national network of outdoor music venues that were started by the Levitt family. Mortimer Levitt, who you see here in that picture with the hat on, the little guy, his dad sold trinkets at Coney Island. And Mortimer would go to work with his father. They were very poor. And not be able to afford a ticket in the park at Coney Island to go hear the bands. And he swore that if he ever made his millions, he would make music free for everyone. So lucky for us, he did, and we are. So here are just kind of a quick glance at some of the locations where Levitt National has really seeded these programs. And it is an incredible mission. Our stated mission is to build community through music. And I always like to point out to people that those words are in that order on purpose. We build community, and how we do it is through music. And when we talk about community, we're talking about everybody. I actually emailed last week to Andrew as I was starting to think about this. And I said, are we talking access? Or are we talking accessibility? Because it really is both, right? And when we say we're welcoming to everyone, we mean everyone of all abilities, of all cultures, backgrounds, whatever. We just want everybody to feel welcome when they come to the lawn and be a part of our programming. When the Levitt comes to a community, it's always a three-way partnership. It's always the Levitt National Foundation, a local 501c3, which is what we are, and then the city has to be involved. So in our case, the city owns the venue. We just get to program it. And people don't always understand that we're a part of the city park system. So in addition to kind of living into our own mission, we're also trying to support the city and expand our mission for everyone through kind of the local government, which is a little bit trickier sometimes, but making sure that we can live into that at all times. For those of you who have been around Sioux Falls, this is what the space looked like when we started. It was actually kind of an abandoned brownfield that sometimes got mowed. And now it is this beautiful, welcoming environment for our whole community. The facility is ADA accessible. We were very intentional about making sure that we could have artists on our stage that had mobility issues, and that our audience with mobility issues could navigate this space easily. In 2020, I guess it was during the pandemic, we decided that we needed to go further than just talking about this stuff internally, but to really, as an organization and as a board, formally write a DE&I statement. And what you see here is part of that, that we're celebrating diversity, equity, inclusion. And then in 2021, we went, oh yeah, we need the A word, we need accessibility in there too for values. And those values are core to everything that we do. So how do we do it? So first, the most public facing, forward facing, I guess, is our 50 free concerts. Every year we start in early June and we go through September, and we have 50 concerts on the lawn. This year we'll engage probably close to 500 musicians by the time it's all said and done. All of the musicians are paid for. And we bring as much diversity to our stage in humans and in music as we possibly can. This year, thank goodness, with the pandemic over, we're able to bring back our international artists. So we'll see bands from 6 different countries this year, in addition to a lot of national acts. We also have openers every night, which is why we were able to have Better Ride last year. They actually open local regional acts that we can bring to our stage and just kind of share the local artisans. But how do we deal with accessibility? This is a huge thing for us. You know, really making sure that we're accessible on the lawn is important. I just chose a couple of pictures here to kind of help me give you some examples of that. The mom and son that you see there, Ryan and Carol, they come to every single concert. Ryan is a paraplegic. He has been in his chair since he was 18 years old. Very isolating experience for him. But now coming to the lawn, he says this has saved his life. It has been really the place where he can come and, you know, his mom can easily pull up to the back of the venue, wheel him right around, and he can enjoy our whole community. And he's just made so many new friends and experiences. It's really been life-changing for them. Then we often have the therapy dogs with us on the lawn. And you can see that they actually bring all kinds of smiles, young and old, people from all abilities. The therapy dogs have been a great partner for us. So they're usually on the lawn at least 5 times during the summer, if not more, based on their schedules. And then, of course, we're always trying to bring more diversity onto our stage. The picture I have here is Galen Lee, who probably most of you know her work, an amazing singer, songwriter, performer who has brittle bone syndrome. And so she has come and performed on our stage. And then while she was in town, we took her to do some work at Lifescape. And so whenever it's possible, we will take our artists out into the community and help them find a place where they can have an even broader impact. We had a very interesting experience when we had Galen Lee, and I will share, you know, we're all in the learning zone. We really considered our venue to be accessible, which I believe it is, as according to the letter of the law. We have a ramp that leads an artist onto our stage, but the ramp is on the front of the stage. So as we think about that access, how do we give her an experience that would be like any other fully mobile artist who can enter from the back of stage and have privacy going into the dressing rooms, right? So we're looking at how we can change that, and again, not only meet the letter of the law, but make it welcoming and truly a place where artists feel like they're being treated like everybody else when they come to our venue. And then during the pandemic, we really learned about access when we couldn't have our live concerts. We quickly pivoted and started something called Levitt in Your Living Room. This is a partnership we have with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, where we actually have 4 cameras on the lawn taping every show that we do so that anybody can access them at any time, so that if you're not able to be with us on the lawn, you can still be a part of and see all this great music. And then we started a program, Levitt in Your Neighborhood, and that's a little bit what I was talking about with Galen Lee, where we take our artists out into the community. And here you see just a couple of examples of that. During the pandemic, we actually went to St. Francis House and we did an outdoor concert with all of their folks, you know, socially distanced and all of that. But we really learned at that point how important it was to take our artists out and be there for people who can't come to us. So another example of that is next week, we have a group coming from Australia, and we're actually doing a concert in the penitentiary. So it should be a fun time. In 2022, last year, we did a big program with the Smithsonian and with the USA Olympic skateboarding and Paralympic skateboarding teams, where we brought some differently abled skaters to do all kinds of programs with us, both in Sioux Falls and in Pine Ridge. So we're always trying to think through that lens and make sure we're including people when we can, so that everybody sees themselves in our programming. Talking about accessibility, we have a program coming up. It'll be a Native Arts Festival where we'll have not only Native artists on our stage, but we'll be having visual arts as well represented. So just to kind of breeze through a couple of those. The community impact is huge, right? Bringing all of these people together in a way that is welcoming and reflects the broad spectrum of who we are as a community is really what it's about. Whether it's about physical accessibility or social accessibility, we really see it all through the same lens, and that we need to be really intentional about the work and intentionally plan resources to do the work. One of the new programs we'll be kicking off here in the next couple of weeks is sensory accessibility for kids on the spectrum who come to a concert, but they get overwhelmed by all the sound and all of that. We've got all kinds of toys and things ready, earplugs, to help them enjoy it as well. So that was a lot, talking really fast, but I wanted to give you a broad spectrum of kind of everything we do. Thank you for including me.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, it's really exciting to see everything that the Levitt has been able to accomplish in such a relatively short time, especially you know, getting at least you had 2019 under your belt before the pandemic year. If it had been 1 year later that you started, I think it would have been even harder. But yeah, just feel like you're kind of getting your feet wet and then having to deal with everything we all had to deal with. So thank you so much, and really excited for some more conversation. But first, I will turn it over to our West River representative for the day, Heather Pickering with Flutter Productions.
Thank you so much, Dan. Hey, is my screen sharing on?
Not yet. I think you'll have to do that same
Okay.
button.
Okay, apologies really quickly here. Thank you so much. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay, fantastical. Hi, I have Flutter Productions. We are an all-ability dance and theater company here in Rapid City, South Dakota. We bring individuals with and without disabilities together to create original pieces of dance theater on the stage. The youngest has been 4 years old, and the oldest has been 86 years old on our stage. And our entire goal is to not only create these performance opportunities, but to also challenge the perception of individuals with disabilities. And when you think about the grade school, middle school, high school experience, so often individuals with more profound intellectual or physical disabilities, you know, they're kept in an isolated classroom type of setting, and they're not often mingling with the general population. So they're spending a lot of their time with other individuals, just other individuals with disabilities. And then so often many of them go on to be served by what is called, you know, a community service provider. Sometimes in your community, you might see maybe vehicles driving around that have a license plate that start with 3 letters, CSP. And that's a community service provider that usually supports individuals with disabilities. And so often, in those settings, they might reside in a group home, but not always. And they might also spend their time in day services, but not always. And again, the people that they're spending time with in that group home or maybe in day services is often just other individuals with disabilities. And when we create our productions, we kind of have a 50-50 mixture in the room. You know, 50% of the individuals maybe have a disability and 50% of the individuals do not have a disability. And that's really where where the magic has come from when we have done our particular pieces with people. And so we really wanted to open it up to have that performing arts experience, not just have that be relegated for a few people, but really allow everybody to have that opportunity to enjoy getting on stage, working on something from start to finish, feeling that satisfaction of completion, and then sharing that with an audience is just a really unique experience, and one that some people take for granted, and then others have never even had that experience. We've created a lot of original fictional pieces, but we've also taken the time to do some nonfiction pieces where we have shared the story of many individuals or stories that just don't get told in general. Even if you look at our history curriculums they teach in the school, so often disability history is just not included. They are stories that are often just not shared or told. And there's very few books on the shelf about disability history and disability culture. So we have, over the years, taken the time to share some of those stories. Probably one of the most powerful ones was the institution that we did back in 2017. Or 2018, excuse me, where we told the story of a gentleman who at the age of 2 years old was turned over to an institution by his family to be raised in an institution, and what the culture was like at that time, and what the mindset was at that time, and why so many children were sent away to be raised independently of their families. And in 2017, we did create the first original production in the state of South Dakota that was written by individuals with disabilities about disabilities and about disability culture. And we were so lucky to partner with South Dakota Public Broadcasting, who took the film of that production and put it on their website for 3 years, which was really great. It kind of reached an audience outside of, our little bubble here in Rapid City. And another thing that we've tried to do, while about 26% of adults in the United States of America have some disability or another, they're only represented 3% or less of the time in film, in media, in print advertising. And so one of the things we've started to do is move away from like the clip art style of creating a poster and taking a lot of the individuals that we work with and putting them out onto the poster and creating positive images using individuals with disabilities. And it's had a really great ripple effect. If you look at the screen right now, there's a show called Corporeal. There's a gentleman kind of standing there in a scrub gown. He not only performed in the show, he also became my guest costume designer for the show. And he hand painted the 4 costumes. There's 4 people kind of curled up inside the heart on the poster there. And one of those individuals and his mom said, "Hey, can we help hang posters?" Well, one of the venues they hung a poster at sent me a picture and they said, "We got one of your posters today." Well, the individual that's there on the floor laying inside of the heart, he started autographing them. He'd sign them, Zach Wilson, and then he'd write, "This is me," and he'd draw a little arrow pointing to himself inside of the heart. And we've had individuals go, because these posters then go onto electronic billboards around town, that we use these images to create the television commercials, and people will go and stand below their billboard and take their picture below them. One young man went to every business in downtown Rapid City and took a picture of himself in front of the poster that had him on it. He was just that proud that everywhere around town he was showing up. So it's had a wonderful effect on our performers and our community as well. One thing that we do take the time to do, and this is information that I kind of wish I'd had when I first started. I went to school to be a teacher and received just like this little teeny bit of training on how to adapt a test for somebody who might have a disability, how to maybe adapt a homework assignment, but really no hands-on information in just like starting, how do you navigate the journey of working with individuals with disabilities. And so we now try to provide some information. We print this information in every program. And then usually whenever we bring our cast into the room for the very first night, this is also individual information we go through just to kind of help create some pathways for people to feel like they can open a doorway. And I did send a handout to Andrew that can be shared later on. And this has had a really positive ripple effect in our community as well. We had a teacher at a local gym come in and ask me for copies of this, and they distributed it to their staff. We had a cast member whose car dealership had just hired 4 individuals with disabilities, and they were having a lot of struggles. And he was in our cast, and we went through the 10 commandments of etiquette when communicating with individuals with disabilities. And as he was sitting there, I kept hearing him go, making these little sounds. And at the end of it, he came up and he goes, "Can I have 25 copies of this? Our staff at the car dealership needs this." And he goes, "Things aren't going well, and I know why now." And he goes, "I would really like to take this out and share it with our staff." So it's had a lot of positive ripple effects. He came back 6 weeks later and he goes, "This helped our staff understand so many things, and it saved the jobs of 3 people. And it also helped our staff just be more aware and cognizant of some of the behavior choices they were choosing." And so we're a theater company, but we try to do other things that maybe have positive ripple effects in our community. When we're not creating productions, we do have weekly classes: creative writing, design, acting, creative movement, and dance. Out of those classes, we've had projects develop. One of them is Fashion Able. We do this project every other year where an individual with a disability gets the opportunity to design an outfit, and then they're partnered one-on-one with a community member, or in some cases, an entire team. So, we've had mother-daughter teams, father-son, father-daughter teams. We had an entire generation of a family. We had a grandmother, daughter, and grandson that all came together to partner with somebody. And they have about 6 weeks to kind of help them create the masterpiece that they envisioned. And then we do a fashion show with those projects every single year. Through our writing class, I discovered we had a gentleman who loved to write in the 1970s. He had a creative writing teacher in high school that encouraged him, but he'd never had the opportunity or the outlet since the 1970s. And when I first came under the umbrella of Black Hills Works is a community service provider. We support 600 adults with disabilities in the Rapid City area. He rolled into my office and he goes, "They think you're going to be my person. I have poems stuck in my head and I want to write them." And so James Janice, we included several of his poems and some of his life stories in several of our productions, but then we let him publish a book, and we worked with artists. We also have the Susie Kappa Art Center here in downtown Rapid City. That's also part of Black Hills Works. It serves artists with disabilities. And we partnered with artists from there who helped illustrate 10 of his poems. And then we were really lucky to have a local framer who agreed to frame all of those poems, or frame the original illustrations, and help us put those poems into a traveling art show that's now gone around the state, which has been a fantastic opportunity. And JJ has also had the opportunity to go around the state and meet people. But we've been really thankful for that, because it's been another way to reach a different group of people than who might come to a theater show. And it's also been a great opportunity for a lot of the arts venues that we're really excited to see some of those things. And then in 2017, we partnered with the USG Center for Disabilities and School of Medicine and Center for Disabilities. We got a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities to kind of do a 3-year evaluation. As a former high school teacher, I had statistics on the benefits of arts for kids in their attendance and their grades, getting scholarships, their ability to focus, do better in other classes, but there was really no information out there in regards to what happens when you create an all-ability situation. And so we kind of wanted to create an evaluation, which was really great. We were the first theater group in the nation that the NEH ever funded. And we were also one of the first disability organizations that they'd opened the doors to, which was a really exciting thing for us to do. And we had several emergent themes that came out of that study, what was happening behind the scenes when we opened the doors to all ability performances. We have not been able to do this on our own. We have definitely had to create many a community partnership with other organizations who've come in and performed with us or partnered with us in some capacity or another. And that has also been really important. Finding other organizations who believe in our mission, who want to become part of it and really want to invest their time and energy into it as well. And it's been fantastic, partnering with we invited a dance school to come into our Fashion-Able performances, and we gave them the playlist, because not only do our designers design their costumes, we want them to think about how they fully present it. We have them pick the music that they want to walk down the runway to. And then we gave the dance school, here's the list of songs. We didn't tell them who is attached to the songs. And then they created dances for them. And then we showed them the designer's work, and they tried to create a little snippet of a costume piece that matched the designer's costume, which was a lot of fun. And to have 30 dancers that are young and developing artists come in and work with us and just see the world in a different light was a really powerful experience. Anyways, we've been pretty busy this summer. Actually, this week, tonight is our preview performance. This is our 25th original performance that we're doing this week. It's called Alice's Adventures. It is an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And this is our 15th year in operation. And we would love it. If you would love to learn more, here's all the places you can find us on. But we're pretty good at Instagram and Facebook. So anyways, yeah. Through that, I should mention, we often talk about the ripple effects. Through the Fashion-Able project, we had one community partner who every single night just really insisted on teaching the individuals she's working with how to thread and unthread a sewing machine. And it was because at the end of the experience, she gifted the sewing machine to her. We had another cast member who, unfortunately, when he was very ill in the hospital, his family was just too far away to be here for him. And it was the Flutter Productions cast members he had performed with that went to the hospital and spent time with him. We brought in a choreographer to choreograph a show. And when she found out that Black Hills Works helps create job opportunities for individuals with disabilities, she created a job in her mailroom for one of our performers in the show. We had one young woman who went to college and halfway through college changed her focus to becoming a special education teacher because of her time spent at Flutter Productions. And we just had a young woman finish her master's degree in dance in the state of New York, who insisted that part of her program include all ability dance experiences as part of her master's focus because of her time spent here. So there's always been a lot of ripple effects that have happened long after the show is over. And that's really almost more of the focus than the performance itself. So anyways, that's kind of what we do out here in Rapid City.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And I know if any of you were at the last State Arts Conference out in Rapid City, you got to see some of those performers, including JJ and others. And I'm going to come back to an experience out at the conference. But first, just as a little summary, a few kind of notes I took down and some of the stuff coming through the chat. I think we all know the power of the arts. I mean, it's what saved us in many ways as individuals, and so being able to see that power for others is so powerful. And just as we've been talking about, keeping it accessible but welcoming and making sure that everyone has that ability to be expressive, because it's what's impacted us. And so we want to try to share that out with everyone and have everyone experience that. But with that, I two other things that kind of have come to mind that's been a common thread amongst all three of the organizations, I think, is intentional but very organic community building. You know, it hasn't been, oh well, we're just going to kind of start a program and see who comes. You know, it's very proactive, active, intentional, but it's also not um forced. It's very grassroots. It's building the community and then seeing what that community wants to do and what they need, rather than saying, oh, okay, well, this is our thing, let's just have a couple of those folks come over and do our thing, which I think can tend to be the method. And often for us in arts organizations, it's not for bad reasons. We're just very passionate about a thing we're doing, and we kind of think everyone wants to be passionate about it without seeing what really works for the folks we're trying to reach. And then the last thing, and a couple people highlighted this in the chat, is to be not just accessible but welcoming. And I know, Nancy, you mentioned that with the access to the stage. So to preface my question for you three, I'm going to mention a time where the last State Arts Conference, where we were unintentionally accessible but not welcoming to Flutter Productions, in large part just because the hotel we hosted the event at didn't tell us until we showed up, oh, hey, our whole front lobby is going to be shut down, which is also the only really good accessible entrance. So, oh, you guys need an accessible entrance. Oh, it's kind of in that weird parking lot around the back. You can't find it, you know. So it's kind of one of those situations where, okay, you gotta, you know, you gotta roll with it and do what we can do. And what we at least tried to do is come meet you there, guide you to where the entrance was, try to make it a welcoming experience. But maybe I might even start with Dan, or Dan and Heather, of just, you've done performances all around the state, and Heather, you've done a lot of performances in a variety of venues. But what are some of the sort of the common missing pieces you found that, boy, if more venues, if more stages just thought about X, Y, or Z, it would solve 80% of our problems that we experience?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just getting on a stage in the first place is tricky, Uh, for me, I can just hop my butt up there and swing my legs around, but anyone with even this, you don't even need a disability, really, it's not easy for some people to just get up a flight of stairs to get up on a stage. So yeah, if someone's putting on an event, they need to think about that. Yeah. So I can remember one time Better Ride played, and it was this flatbed, and at least the guy putting it on caught on that there was going to be an issue, and he came over and talked to me, and then we found some crates and pushed a table up there, and we made it work, and we helped people up that way. But yeah, so yeah, just accessibility to stages and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Unfortunately, most of the dressing rooms in many of the theater spaces we've been in are not on the same floor as the theater. And so we have, one place they took the scene shop, which is right off of the theater, and rented some pipe and drape for us. And we piped and draped the scene shop to, create dressing room space for individuals in there. That's been a problem on many an occasion, just getting into the building and even having dressing room space that's right there in the building, having automatic doors that open, or even tables that are adjustable in height, because a lot of individuals who might use an automatic wheelchair, those are a little bit higher, and so you need to sometimes have tables that can adjust in height. Similar issues, maybe something's a little too loud, and we've had earphones in the past, and some of our folks, but not all, I should mention that, I don't want to generalize, these are just isolated incidences. Sometimes adapting to a new space and having to adapt to new space quickly is a little scary, and it's hard to do, especially maybe if you struggle with spatial awareness. And so we borrowed an idea that we saw somebody else use, and we got little earbuds and walkie-talkies and helped to remind people which direction to go when they were exiting the stage as they exited. But of course, I learned my lesson there. Don't get the cheap set, get the expensive set, because we were doing an event in Sioux Falls and a bunch of truckers found our channel. And I felt so bad because in the middle of the performance, all these truckers are talking in all of our ears. And I knew they were talking in the ears of the poor man that was out there on stage who was already focusing so hard. And so I like got on there and I was like, dear truckers of Sioux Falls, could you please stop using this channel? We're using it for performance and I can't change the channel. And all of them became quiet except for two. So, you know, we've had a lot of moments. You know, and sometimes we also take spike tape with us. You know, you put little colored pieces of tape on the floor in theater to let people know where certain pieces of scenery need to land right here. But we also create a lot of spike marks or additional pathways that aren't traditionally done for some of our artists, so they can really navigate and find this space and just feel more comfortable where they are in that setting. That's just another thing that we've done. And then we kind of create a note card. Here's your pathways, and the colors on the note card match the color pathways on the floor. And we usually partner somebody with them in the wings, and we'll have them talk them through. Don't forget, you're going to do the yellow line, then the pink dash line to the green X, and they'll remind them of that before they go out. So we make little tiny adaptations all over the place.
Well, Nancy, you know, you spoke a little bit about access to the stage already and some changes you'd like to make, which leads me to kind of two questions. One being, you know, what has it been like working with the city? The city, it's the city park, but that's your space. The city probably has in some ways more stringent accessibility requirements, and in other ways absolutely not what you'd like, I'm certain. And so just maybe a little bit of conversation around navigating that relationship.
Yeah, it is challenging. I mean, they're very supportive, but they're kind of the mind of once it's built, it's built. So to come back and say, oh, no, now that we've been living in it, we see that we need to add these things to make it even more accessible. You know, that's been harder. For example, in the back, they have, again, what is ADA accessible. They have rolled the concrete coming from the parking lot onto our backstage area. Yes, it's rolled, but if you are an elderly person helping another person in a wheelchair navigate that, that's like a thump bump, right? I mean, it's hard to get up. So we've asked them to think about carving out another more gradual kind of incline there for wheelchairs. And it's been a bit of an uphill battle because they're saying, well, we've done what we were supposed to do. Again, at the Levitt, we've turned the phrase radical hospitality. You know, ADA is not good enough. Welcoming is what we need. So that's been a big thing. I did want to add a statement, just listening to all of this, is how important it has been for us to just always plug some resources in our budget for the unexpected when it comes, because when we're dealing with people with different challenges, we can't always anticipate those things, right? So thinking about how do I make sure that if it comes up, I'm ready to handle it. One of the things that we did, 3 years ago, and again, it's been a budgetary expense, but it's been important to us, is we actually engaged with a website company called Recite Me. And it allows our website to be transformed. So if you have an accessibility issue visually, you can go in and change it in just a multitude of ways so that you can read the website. Because if you can't receive our marketing, you can't come be a part of what we do, right? That's part of welcoming, is even before they get there. It also allows you to change the website into 47 different languages. And we were able to tell them what the top languages were in our community. Again, it's just, you know, it takes resources, it takes intentionality to create it.
Yeah, well, so this is a loaded question, or maybe too broad to be a great question. But, you know, just one thing I was thinking about is just if you could kind of, if there was just, we talked about access as far as to the stage, but just generally speaking, if there was kind of one thing that you wish other people, like the first thing I should say, that you wish other people knew that would make your work easier or have more impact or would provide a better experience for a lot of the community you serve? You know, is there kind of like a first thing, boy, if you're really starting to get down this road, what's just the first thing you would really recommend people start thinking about in their own work?
I'll jump in first and say, I guess I just want to make sure we know about each other, right? We know the work that we're doing. I mean, I was just listening to Heather going, gosh, what can I talk to her about bringing to our stage? Like, that would be so cool. I think we need to support each other in the work, and we need to make our stages available for that representation.
Well, and I would just say in general, just opening your door to, different people of different backgrounds, and everybody brings something into a space that is of value and of education and importance to other people in the space. And there's more to life than giving this perfect performance, right? We need to learn about each other's humanity and commonality, and just expand our viewpoints and different walks of life. There's a lot of value in that alone. We had one student who left here. She went to Los Angeles for school, and she goes, I was in a dance class and it was Dance History Day, and she goes, there was one page about disability dance, and she goes, I raised my hand and it was like, oh, I've done this in South Dakota. And she goes, my teacher goes, they don't have things like that in South Dakota. Trust me. And she said, I pulled out my cell phone and pulled up the Instagram page. And so, it was kind of funny. It was a funny moment. I just think, open your doors. You never know what you're going to learn or what people might take away from an experience. The first project we did, we really didn't know what we were doing. And the value that my then high school students got out of the experience went far beyond another chance to perform. They learned a lot more than that. So everybody's walk in this world is something that should be shared, not just relegated to a few. I would say that's the biggest.
I'd say for the public to just approach, I think some people are just afraid of things that are different, and people with disabilities are a little scary. And I would say if you just approach with curiosity and respect, you're always going to find a friend. You're always going to find a relationship, and that goes with anything that's different than us. I think people are afraid that they're going to offend somebody, they're going to say the wrong thing, they're going to do the wrong thing. But as long as you approach whoever that is with respect and honest curiosity to find out who they are and what they're all about, that that's just the best path for relationship.
Well, we're coming up somehow already on the end of the hour. It really kind of flew by, but I just want to say thank you again so much, Dan, Heather, and Nancy. It's just been really wonderful to get an opportunity to chat with the three of you again and to hear more about the work you're all doing. And you're not the only ones doing the work around the state, but we're really glad to feature the work that you three are doing, and really excited to continue this conversation. Again, if you haven't already registered, in 2 weeks we're having a session with the South Dakota Arts Council about some practical changes coming to their granting programs surrounding accessibility. Thank you again to our panelists. Thank you to all of you for all the work you do around the state. Looking at the list of attendees, it's amazing just to see all of the great work happening in every corner of South Dakota. So thank you all again. Please reach out if we can do anything to support you from Art South Dakota, and wishing you all a wonderful rest of the week ahead.
Thank you.